gives me a nice little break. I like to draw him. It's always fun. There we go. Now, what are we going to do tonight? So what is our challenge? Well, first off, we want to show the relative key, and we want to use a strong sense of our 2, 3, 6, and 7 in our melody. Now it's kind of two things in once, but they kind of go together because we want to show the relative key and how that works, being the 1 and then the 6. How about for number 2? Let's do something a little different. Let's create a bass line tonight. So we want a strong bass line that we can use that is repeating. So a repeating bass line. And then number 3, how about we introduce something called syncopation? We'll show you what syncopation is. All right. Those look pretty good. That'll work for our challenge for tonight. So first off, let's choose a key. How about we did everything on the last, at the beginning of the lesson in sharps. Why don't we do things in flats this time? So how about we do 2 flats? So we're going to use a B flat major. And then we'll figure out what our relative minor is. So let's do it this way. So here we have B flat. And then we go to find our relative minor. We go down, B flat, A flat, or G sharp, G. So there's 3 semitones, 1, 2, 3 letters. So it's B flat major and G minor. So let's just do the natural minor scale for G minor and then the major scale for B flat major. So first note, last note, and same for G minor. Oh, cheating again. B flat and E flat. There we are. All right, now when we look at our chords and our 2, 3, 6, and 7, so our 2 is going to be the C. So we need to use the C, and the 3 is D, and the 6, submediant, is G, and the 7 is A. So we want to use those 4 notes as much as we can to kind of bring out the idea of how to use these other notes other than our 1, 4, and 5 that we usually use quite a bit. In our minor key, our 2 is A, our 3 is B flat, our 6 is E flat, and our 7 is F. Now notice the difference here. I use lowercase here because these are all based on minors. Over here, the 2 is actually based on a minor. It's called a diminished, but 3, 6, and 7, remember this is the subtonic, not the raised 7th. The subtonic is also a major chord, F, A, C. So there's the notes that we want to focus on, building in B flat major. Now, we want to create a bass line. So let's do this. Make a bit of a grand staff down here. How about we'll do 4 bars. And we're going to write in B flat major. Now, when we're building a bass line, what we're looking for is we want it to be smooth. We want it to do have it be based on a foundation of roots. roots of the chord. So in other words, the first note of each chord. When we look at 1, 4, and 5, here we've got B flat, here we've got E flat and F. Now we also want to use our relative minor, which is G. So we want to use the G, which is our 6. So we want to use 1, 4, 5, and 6. Lowercase should be for 6 because that's a minor, obviously. When we go to G minor, foundation of roots, and then we can add some passing tones. A passing tone is used to connect chord notes. So if we start out very simply, put in our key signatures, we'll do 4/4 time today. And so we want to stay on the root. So if we're going to go 1 first, how about we just do a nice little kind of a bossa rhythm or different rhythm with dotted quarter notes. Now I'm going to go down. I'm going to go straight to my 6, to the G, like this. Notice in between, this is a chord note. This is a chord note. I can put a passing tone in between. That's called a passing tone, and we mark it PT for passing tone. Go to our G. Now why don't we do this? Keep that same rhythm. And I'm going to go down to my 4 chord. And I can use another passing tone in between. Keep that same rhythm. There's my 4. And then I want to end on my 5. So there's no need for a passing tone because it's only a step higher. I think this is going to work really well. It's pretty straightforward. Let's see what it sounds like. And then I think that can go right back to the beginning and repeat. Works great. Excellent. That's good. So there's our bass line. We're going to have to make sure we work on the C's, D's, G's, and A's to fulfill number 1. And then number 3 is syncopation. What is syncopation? So syncopation is having a melody or chords off beat. So think of our counting in 4/4 time would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so what we want to do is we want to use the ands. We want to put notes on the ands. Now, it doesn't have to be exclusively on the ands, but we want to use a lot of offbeat sounds. So let's have a look here. If we just think of, let's do this. Let's put in just a whole note on the top. Then we'll come down to the G here. And then how about we'll go way up to the E flat up here and one more up to the F here. So there's really simply just whole notes. Now, if I want to create offbeat, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write some notes underneath these. It doesn't have to be underneath. We can even put them in the melody like so. Let's say I'm going to turn that into an 8th note. And now I'll put in a quarter note. Look what happens. All of a sudden, this is on the and. 1 and 2, nothing on the 2. And then let's put in another quarter note, or sorry, 8th note here. Now this lands on the beat. And then we'll go off beat with a quarter note. And then on the beat, or off the beat again, sorry, with an 8th note. So this note, it's 1. This is on the and. There's nothing on 2. This is on and. 3 is on the beat. I think that needs to be an eighth note though. Eighth note. And 4, nothing on there. And so here we have the rhythm. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and offbeat. I wanted to show you one more thing, that sometimes when we have a long note in the melody, this note's going to hold all the way through. We can write notes underneath here if we like, but we have to cheat a little bit and change the rules for the direction of our stems. I'm going to put one in here. Let's change that into a half note, and then we'll put another half note here. So there's 2 beats and 2 beats. But all of a sudden, if I want to put in something underneath here, I'm going to cheat a little bit and put a rest underneath here. So there's beat 1. And now I can put in a note, but the stem has to go in the opposite direction because I've already got 2 beats on the top, 2 more beats. So anything that I write in this second voice, in this alto voice, has to go in the opposite direction. The stems have to point downward like so. 1, 2, 3, 4. So notice, if I take away those top 2 notes, you've got quarter, quarter, quarter with 2 eighths, and a quarter. Or if I take away the bottom notes, you've got a half note and a half note. If I did the same thing over here, the stems would have to go in an upward direction on the top, and then underneath, the stems point downward. And notice the position of the rests is slightly different as well. There we go. That gives you the idea of syncopation. So here we have on the and, this is on 2, which is on the beat. This one's very different on the front, isn't it? All right, I think we're pretty good to go. Let's start writing our piece out, see what we come up with today. All right, so I've sort of started with my grand staff. I haven't put in all the bar lines because I think I want to use a couple extra bars, and maybe we'll do a repeat or something in here. So I'm not sure how it'll all fit. Let's put in our bar lines for at least the first couple of lines. We can do that. Try and make it as even as possible. Not too bad. I think this one's a little bigger. That's okay. Let's put in our key signature. We're going to do B flat major and G minor. Same key signature. 2 flats all the way down. And then we'll need our time signature. Oh, that wasn't a very good flat. So let's do 4/4 time. Let's use that bass line that we created on our previous page. So we have B flat, B flat. So this is our 1 chord going down to our 6 chord. So now we have a nice strong sense of our relative keys. That one's going to be a passing tone down to E flat. Do the same one again. And then up to our F. Whoops. That's going to be an E flat and then an F. My stems aren't very straight today. Make an improvement. There we go. All right. So there's our bass line. I think I'm just going to write this in very quickly down on the bottom. Exactly the same as it is above. And then we'll see where we go to create our melody. All right. Now, I think one of the other criteria, we said we wanted to use syncopation, and we want to use 2, 3, 6, 7. So why don't we start our melody, and we're actually going to start it. Let's start it on the 2, and let's go back and forth between 2 and 3. So that would be C and D. So there's a couple of notes. Let's put in some syncopation now. How about How about we'll do an eighth note and then a quarter note. So we're just going back and forth on the 2 and 3. Now there's our first syncopation. You can see it kind of looks a little odd. Bum, 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 bum. How about we go up here to F, and then we'll land on our 6. There's our 1 chord. There's our 6 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord. How about this? We'll hold a nice long melody note up on the top. So we're going to tie that over, tie those together. Now we could let's put in some syncopated chords underneath, like we showed you on the last page. So here I need a quarter rest. And look at this. We have our 6 chord, which is G, B flat, and D. We already have the G on the top. So let's write in our D and our B flat on beat 2. And then how about we'll use a little syncopation here. We need 1, 2, how about an 8th rest, and then we'll repeat that chord. Bum, 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 bop, bop. Let's put in some staccatos. This is the other thing that's interesting. When you have the stems going in the opposite direction, your staccatos or accents, they're going to go on the stem side as well. Just like that. We're on the 4 chord. What are our notes? E, E flat, G, B flat. So how about, well, G is still part of that chord. So let's tie this over even longer. But we're going to do this. Let's do this. Come back on the G. And again, we'll use some syncopation. We'll go G up to, how about B flat with some syncopation, 8th note, quarter note, 8th note, and there's our 7. So we've used 2, 3, 2, 3, 5, 6. There's our 6, 6, 1, 7. So there's our 7. Tell you what, we're going to syncopate this across, tie it over, and then we'll fill in with a quarter. How about all the way down? We'll do another quarter. And then we'll finish with a dotted quarter over the side. Bum, 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 bum. We'll go down one more. That'll create a nice melody. Now we can add in our alto notes. Here we've got E, G, B. We've got G in the top. So let's add in our E and our B flat. Staccato that one. And then here we'll put in 8th rest and we'll match this rhythm that we have in the previous bar. Let's put it in there. Quarter rest. And here, why don't we sync these up same time? So we're going to use, we've got F, we've got A, so we need a C, don't we, to fill out the chord. We'll just use the same one all the way along. I think that needs to be a dotted note to make sure we have 4 beats. 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and that'll work. I think that looks pretty interesting. Let's do something similar down here. I think we can do actually almost the same thing. Bum, 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 bum. But we'll change at the very end so that it leads into our 3rd phrase. So I'm going to write that out the same way really quickly, and then we'll move on to our 3rd phrase. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Let's go the other way. Bum, 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 bum. Let's go up. This time I think because we're going up to the C, let's put in the F this time. I know that's doubling up the F, but we're really okay to double up on the tonic especially. There we go. Now that's going to lead into our third line, fourth line. I have a feeling I'm going to use a repeat dot near the end, so I'm going to put in an extra bar here. Let's see how we're going to do that. Not going to be a lot of room. This is going to get really squishy. I'll have to write really small. All right. Bum, 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 bum. That's going to lead up to our high note. How about we come back to the tonic, tonic, up to our 2, back to our tonic. Hold that note long, just like we did before. Now let's go up to our C, up to our second note. Back to our tonic. Leading note. Back to our tonic, little syncopation. So let's put in an eighth, tie it over. Up to our number 2. Back to our tonic. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. That'll work really well. So that's our 1 chord. It's going to be our 6 chord, 5 chord, or 4 chord, 5 chord, back to our 1 chord. Let's put in our bass line. Same as before. Down to our 6. Passing note down to our 4. And up to our 5. Then we're going to go to our 1. And we continue on, coming down to our 6, down to our 4, back to our 5, and then we're coming to the end. So I think what we need to do is just finish strong with our tonic dominant. Bum, bum, bum. Let's use the dominant, and we'll come back, bum, down to dominant, finish on the tonic at the bottom. I think that's going to work really well. Now melody. Well, I've got this line here. Tonic. Let's do tonic again. I have an idea of what I want to do here underneath. Go to our 2. How about 3, 2, 1. And we're just going to hold that note all the way through. All right, now we can fill in our underneath part. Let's see what we're going to do there. So if we do the same rhythm, here we've got B flat, D, and F. So we have lots of B flat. So I think we need the D and the F underneath. Let's use this same rhythm that we have here. So we'll do a quarter rest, and then we'll fit in right there our quarter. Then we need an eighth. Then we need the quarter at the end. Here we have G, B flat, D, and we have the B flat on the top. So this time, notice up here, we always use the missing note. So here we have the G as a melody note. We use B flat and D as our accompaniment rhythm underneath. So here we have the B flat, so we need G and D. Use that same rhythm so it ties everything together. There we go. Now this is the 4 chord, which is E flat, G, and B flat, but notice we've got a C at the top. This is actually really interesting. Look what happens. Here it comes down to the B flat, but if I use E flat and G, this becomes the 4 of G minor. So we have C, E flat, and G. And then when we get to the end of the line, it'll change back into the 4 with the same notes of B flat major, E flat, G, B flat. So there's another showing of how closely related these notes are when we're dealing with relative keys. The C minor and E flat major are very close. The 4 of G minor and the 4 of E flat have the 2 common tones. They both have E flat and G. Let's do our 5. I'm going to write this a little different. Instead of doing the stems down, we're going to sync this up at the same time. So we can just add in our F here. Make sure we tie it. So all those notes match up. I think that'll work really well. Now over here, this little rhythm, bum, 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 bum. I think because we're coming to the end, let's use that same little rhythm underneath. Dun, 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 dun. And then let's hold that D. That's really going to kind of show off the use of the 2 and the 3. We'll do it one more time here. Same thing. C, D, C, D. Tie it over. And then how about we use the 5, 6, or in this case, for the minor key, it would be the 7 and the 1. But the 5, 6, I think, ending on the 6 for sure, will be nice. Notice again, when we went up to the C, we created the 4 chord of G minor. And then how about to finish, we're on our 5 chord, which is F, A, and C. So how about we use our A? Because we're coming to the end, why don't we make a little melody here, counter melody. Come back to the A, and then we'll come down to G and F, and that'll lead us into the final part. Let's repeat that C, D, C, D. Hold it. Tie it over. And we could do that one more time. That really makes that 2, 3 really strong. We're showing that we've used it really well over and over again. Ties to there. You know what? I think this is going to work if we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do this. We can put a repeat dot in there. That'll send us right back to the top and play through the whole thing one more time before we get to that ending. Repeat dot. You just put the 2 little dots in the 2nd and 3rd space with an extra bar line, and that'll send you right back to the beginning. Now, if we have the backwards repeat dot, say for example, I put them in here and put them on this side, that would send you back to that spot all the way through. But otherwise, it sends you right back to the beginning. Let's see what it sounds like. See what we've created. Let's see what we've got. See what it sounds like. good. Now I'm thinking that I can beef it up a little bit and just put octaves on the bottom. Let's play through the whole thing one more time, and we'll put in the repeat this time. But listen how nice that is, that 2, 3. And then the syncopation. All off beat. Here we go. That sounds pretty good. I like that. It sounds like something from the 50s. Nope. Let's do that. How about in the 50s? Kind of the start of all our pop music as we know of it today. And then, of course, we need the composer. And we need our copyright. Always want to do that. Good stuff. So there's our lesson today on relative keys and how they're related, the 1 and the 6, and how closely they tie things together. We did a little bit on syncopation, and we really dealt with the supertonic and mediant, and we used the submediant and the leading tone. And we talked about the subtonic as well of the minor key. There we are for today. There's your lesson. Hope you enjoyed that. Had lots of fun. Talk to you very soon. Bye for now.